The Cleveland Browns organization is in absolute chaos right now, and what's happening behind closed doors is way more dramatic than anything you're seeing on the field. While the football world focuses on wins and losses, there's a full-scale power struggle brewing inside the Browns facility between general manager Andrew Berry and head coach Kevin Stefanski over the future of the quarterback position. And at the center of this organizational civil war is none other than Shedeur Sanders, the rookie signal caller whose very presence in Cleveland has exposed deep fractures in the team's leadership structure. Here's what everyone needs to understand. When Shedeur Sanders takes the field against the Las Vegas Raiders this week, it won't be because Kevin Stefanski suddenly had an epiphany about the rookie's abilities. It won't be because the coaching staff collectively decided this was the right move for the team. It'll be because Andrew Berry, the Browns general manager, went over Stefanski's head and forced his hand in a move that has completely undermined the head coach's authority and created one of the most toxic situations in the NFL right now. The public narrative being fed to fans and media is that this is a collaborative decision, a united front where everyone in the organization is on the same page about giving Shedeur his shot. But that's complete fiction designed to paper over the cracks of what's really happening. The truth is far messier, far more contentious, and it reveals everything you need to know about why the Browns have been such a dysfunctional disaster for years, despite having talent on the roster. Let's start from the beginning, because understanding how Shedeur Sanders even ended up in Cleveland is crucial to comprehending the current situation. From day one of the pre-draft process, Andrew Berry has been absolutely obsessed with Shedeur Sanders. While other teams were evaluating the quarterback class and identifying prospects that fit their systems, Berry had tunnel vision focused exclusively on getting Sanders into a Browns uniform. This wasn't a case of the entire front office and coaching staff agreeing on a target. This was Berry's personal crusade, his pet project that he became completely fixated on to the exclusion of all other considerations. Berry initially hoped to land Shedeur in the first or second round of the draft. When other teams started selecting quarterbacks and it became clear Sanders might slip further than expected, Berry's frustration was palpable to everyone in the organization. Sources close to the situation say Berry was visibly agitated, pacing the war room and barely containing his anxiety about potentially missing out on his guy. This wasn't professional concern about losing a prospect. This was personal investment bordering on obsession. When the draft reached the 5th round and Shedeur was still available, Berry made his move. But here's where things get really interesting. He didn't just make a standard draft selection through normal organizational channels. Berry went directly to owner Jimmy Haslam and convinced him to greenlight the pick, effectively bypassing the usual consensus-building process that healthy organizations employ. Haslam himself later confirmed this in a press conference, stating explicitly that selecting Shedeur Sanders was Andrew Berry's call, not a collaborative decision involving the coaching staff. Think about what that means for a second. The general manager of an NFL team went around his head coach to draft a quarterback, bringing in a player at the most important position in sports without full buy-in from the person who would actually be responsible for developing and coaching that player. That's not how functional organizations operate. That's how dysfunctional disasters waiting to happen operate, and we're now watching that disaster unfold in real time. Jimmy Haslam's comments at the time were incredibly revealing. He made it crystal clear that while Kevin Stefanski makes the decisions about play calling and who starts at various positions, the decision to draft Shedeur Sanders belonged entirely to Andrew Berry. The owner essentially drew a line in the sand, establishing that Berry had final authority on roster construction even if it conflicted with what the coaching staff wanted. That's a recipe for organizational chaos, and chaos is exactly what we're getting. From the moment Shedeur arrived in Cleveland, Andrew Berry has been his most vocal and visible supporter within the organization. While Stefanski and the coaching staff took a measured, cautious approach to the rookie quarterback, Berry was singing his praises at every opportunity. After Shedeur's performance in the first preseason game, Berry was the only person in the organization who seemed genuinely excited and proud. Watch the footage from that period, and Berry's body language tells you everything you need to know. This isn't a GM providing standard public support for a draft pick. This is someone personally invested in seeing a specific player succeed, almost to an uncomfortable degree. Barry's effusive praise for Shedeur after that preseason game went well beyond normal organizational messaging. He didn't just say Sanders played well or showed promise. Barry said he was genuinely proud of Shedeur, speaking with the emotional investment of a father or mentor rather than a football executive providing standard prospect evaluation. The language Barry used, the way his face lit up when discussing Sanders, the personal connection he clearly feels, all of it screams that this has become about more than just football for the Browns GM. Meanwhile, Kevin Stefanski's body language and public comments told a completely different story. The head coach has never seemed fully sold on Shedeur Sanders, and he's done very little to hide his skepticism. In multiple press conferences during training camp, Stefanski made it clear he wasn't paying much attention to what Shedeur could bring to the table. He explicitly stated he wasn't ready to give Sanders meaningful reps, declaring that Deshaun Watson was the one deserving of all the practice time with the first-team offense. Stefanski even went so far as to dismiss questions about Shedeur's development, saying he wasn't focused on the rookie because Watson, as the established starter, needed all available practice time. That's coach speak for, "I don't think this guy is ready, and I'm not interested in accelerating his timeline." It was a clear signal that Stefanski viewed Shedeur as a project for the future, not someone who would be competing for playing time in the immediate present. Fast forward to now, and suddenly Stefanski is singing a completely different tune. Now he's telling media that Shedeur is ready to start, that the rookie has earned the opportunity, that a game plan is being built around him. The 180 pivot is so dramatic and abrupt that it raises obvious questions. What changed? Did Shedeur suddenly transform into a completely different quarterback over the span of a few weeks? Or did something else happen that forced Stefanski's hand? The answer, according to multiple sources within the Browns organization, is that Andrew Barry essentially ordered Stefanski to start Shedeur Sanders. After the devastating loss to the Baltimore Ravens, where the Browns' offense looked completely lifeless and Watson struggled mightily, Stefanski was actually considering making changes to the game plan that would have reduced Shedeur's role even further. Barry caught wind of this and immediately intervened, making it clear to Stefanski that Sanders needed to not just play, but to be featured as the starter with a full game plan built around him. This wasn't a suggestion or a request from Barry. This was a directive from the GM to the head coach, a power play that completely undermines Stefanski's authority over his own offense. Sources say Barry made his position unequivocally clear. Shedeur Sanders would start against the Raiders, the offense would be tailored to his strengths, and Stefanski needed to figure out how to make it work, regardless of any reservations he might have. That's not collaboration. That's one executive forcing another to implement a decision he fundamentally disagrees with. The public messaging from the organization has been carefully crafted to present a united front. Stefanski dutifully told reporters that Shedeur would be playing with the first team, and that game planning was underway to utilize his skills. But pay attention to Stefanski's word choice and body language during these press conferences. He's going through the motions, saying the right things, but there's no enthusiasm or conviction behind his words. He sounds like someone reading from a script written by someone else, which is essentially what's happening. Mary Kay Cabot, one of the most plugged-in Browns reporters, essentially confirmed the Barry influence when she reported that the decision to start Shedeur isn't about appeasing him or his supporters. According to Cabot's sources, it's all about Sanders' impressive accuracy, something Andrew Barry recognized from the start and has been championing throughout the process. The implication is clear. Barry is driving this decision based on what he sees in Shedeur, regardless of whether the coaching staff shares his evaluation. Let's talk about Shedeur's actual performance, because that's at the heart of why Barry is so convinced and why Stefanski remains skeptical. In his debut appearance, Sanders showed flashes of genuine NFL-caliber talent mixed with rookie mistakes and limitations. He was sacked twice, missed some throws under pressure, and looked overwhelmed at times by the speed of the professional game. Those are the plays Stefanski sees, the evidence supporting his cautious approach. But Barry is looking at something different. He's seeing the throws that were absolutely perfect, the anticipation and placement that you can't teach, the arm talent that makes difficult throws look routine. One play in particular has become a touchstone for Barry's belief in Shedeur. A perfectly placed ball to Elijah Moore in the red zone that should have been a touchdown. Moore had the ball secured. The throw was exactly where it needed to be, and it looked like Shedeur was about to deliver a game-changing moment in his debut. Then Moore fumbled. Despite having possession, despite the ball being perfectly thrown, the receiver lost control and the opportunity evaporated. For Stefanski, that play reinforces his concerns about Shedeur's supporting cast and whether the rookie can succeed with the weapons around him. For Barry, that play is Exhibit A in his case that Sanders is being let down by his teammates rather than being the problem himself. Same play, completely different interpretations, and that divergence in perspective is tearing the organization apart. That wasn't the only instance of receivers failing Shedeur. Throughout his limited playing time, Sanders consistently delivered accurate passes that his receivers simply couldn't hold on to. Time and again, Shedeur put the ball exactly where it needed to be, only to watch passes hit receivers in the hands and bounce away. One particularly egregious drop saw a perfectly thrown ball go right through a receiver's hands, a play that would have moved the chains and sustained a drive. These plays don't show up in the stat sheet. When a quarterback completes just 50% of his passes, that number doesn't tell you how many perfect throws were dropped by receivers. It doesn't capture the reality that Sanders did his job on multiple occasions, only to be let down by the players around him. Andrew Barry sees these plays and understands that the numbers don't tell the full story. Kevin Stefanski sees the same plays and wonders if Shedeur is ready to overcome those challenges and elevate the players around him. This fundamental disagreement about how to evaluate Shedeur's performance has created an impossible situation. Barry believes Sanders has proven he deserves to start based on his accuracy, decision-making, and arm talent. Stefanski believes Sanders still has significant developing to do before he's ready to be the guy leading the offense. In a healthy organization, these two perspectives would be reconciled through honest dialogue and collaborative decision-making. In Cleveland, Barry is simply overruling Stefanski and forcing his preferred outcome. The implications of this power dynamic extend far beyond just the quarterback position. Every player on the Browns roster is now watching a general manager undercut his head coach's authority in the most visible way possible. They're seeing that Stefanski doesn't have final say over his own offense, that Barry can come in and override coaching decisions whenever he feels like it. That's poison for a locker room, and it destroys the credibility and authority a head coach needs to effectively lead a team. Players need to believe that their coach is in charge, that his word is law, that the decisions being made about playing time and strategy are coming from someone with complete authority. When a GM starts making lineup decisions and forcing game plans on a head coach, it creates confusion about who's actually running things. Players start playing politics, trying to curry favor with both Barry and Stefanski rather than just focusing on football. The chain of command breaks down, and with it goes any hope of organizational cohesion. This situation also raises serious questions about Kevin Stefanski's future in Cleveland. He won Coach of the Year, he's widely respected around the league, and he's generally done a solid job given the dysfunction around him. But how long can a head coach survive when his own GM is publicly undermining his authority? How long before Stefanski decides he's had enough and starts looking for opportunities elsewhere? And if Stefanski does leave, what quality coach would want to come to Cleveland knowing they'll be operating under a GM who feels entitled to override their decisions? The Browns are creating a reputation as one of the worst-run organizations in professional sports, and situations like this are exactly why. Talented people don't want to work in environments where roles and responsibilities are unclear, where power struggles are constant, where the person nominally in charge doesn't actually have the authority their title suggests. Cleveland is systematically making itself toxic to quality coaching and executive talent, ensuring that dysfunction will continue regardless of how much money ownership is willing to spend on players. And what about Shedeur Sanders himself? The rookie is being thrown into an absolute pressure cooker situation where organizational politics are swirling around him, where his performance will be interpreted through the lens of a power struggle he has nothing to do with, where failure will be weaponized by different factions within the building. That's not fair to a young player trying to establish himself in the league, and it's not conducive to his development as a quarterback. If Shedeur struggles against the Raiders, Stefanski will have ammunition to argue that Barry was wrong to force this decision. If Shedeur succeeds, Barry will be vindicated, but Stefanski will be diminished. Either outcome creates winners and losers within the organization, rather than everyone pulling in the same direction. That's toxic organizational culture, and it's why the Browns continue to underperform, despite having talent on the roster. The most frustrating part is that this entire situation was completely avoidable. If Barry had built consensus around drafting Shedeur instead of unilaterally making the call, if he had worked collaboratively with Stefanski on a development timeline instead of forcing playing time decisions, if he had respected organizational hierarchy instead of constantly undermining his head coach, none of this drama would exist. The Browns could be a unified organization focused on winning football games instead of a soap opera where executives fight for control. But that's not how Andrew Barry operates, at least not when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. For whatever reason, Barry has made this quarterback his personal crusade, his hill to die on, the thing he's willing to burn organizational bridges to make happen. Maybe he genuinely believes Sanders is a franchise-changing talent and feels a responsibility to ensure the rookie gets every opportunity to succeed. Maybe there are personal or political considerations at play that we don't fully understand. Whatever the motivation, Barry has decided this is worth fighting for, even if it means alienating his head coach. The coming weeks will reveal whether Barry's conviction about Shedeur Sanders was justified, or whether this becomes another cautionary tale about organizational dysfunction in Cleveland. If Sanders thrives as a starter and develops into a quality NFL quarterback, Barry will look like a visionary who had the courage to stick to his convictions despite internal opposition. If Sanders struggles and the quarterback situation remains a mess, Barry will be remembered as the GM who let personal attachment to a prospect cloud his judgment and destroy organizational cohesion in the process. What's clear right now is that Cleveland has created a lose-lose situation for everyone involved. Kevin Stefanski has been humiliated and undermined, forced to implement decisions he doesn't agree with while maintaining the pretense that everything is fine. Andrew Barry has burned bridges with his head coach and created a reputation for overstepping his role in ways that will make future coaching hires more difficult. Shedeur Sanders has been thrust into a pressure cooker environment where organizational politics will color how his performance is evaluated regardless of what he does on the field. This is what dysfunction looks like in the modern NFL. It's not always about talent or coaching schemes or draft picks. Sometimes it's about power struggles between executives, about organizational hierarchies breaking down, about personal agendas taking precedence over team success. The Browns have all the ingredients for a successful franchise: owner willing to spend money, talented players on the roster, respected coaching and front office personnel. But when those pieces don't work together, when roles aren't clearly defined and respected, when ego and politics infect decision-making, you get what Cleveland has right now. The saddest part is that Browns fans deserve better. They've endured decades of losing, countless regime changes, broken promises, and dashed hopes. They show up every Sunday desperately wanting to believe this time will be different, that this coach or this GM or this quarterback will finally be the one to turn things around. Instead, they get front office drama, power struggles, and organizational dysfunction that undermines any chance of sustainable success. So, when Shedeur Sanders takes the field against the Raiders, don't just watch the game. Watch the sidelines, watch the body language between Barry and Stefanski, watch how the organization presents this situation to the public. Because what's happening in Cleveland right now is about so much more than one rookie quarterback getting a start. It's about organizational culture, executive overreach, power dynamics, and whether a franchise can succeed when the people in charge are working against each other instead of together. If you're as shocked by what's really happening behind the scenes in Cleveland as we are, smash that like button right now. This is the kind of organizational dysfunction that destroys franchises, and we want to hear what you think in the comments below. Is Andrew Barry right to force Shedeur Sanders into the starting role, or is he overstepping his authority as GM? Can Kevin Stefanski survive having his authority constantly undermined, or is his time in Cleveland running out? And most importantly, is Shedeur Sanders being set up for success or failure by being thrust into this toxic situation? Let us know where you stand. And if you're not already subscribed to this channel, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on the wildest story in the NFL right now. The Browns' quarterback situation is must-watch television for all the wrong reasons, and you're going to want to be here for every twist and turn. Let's go.